going to be talking about Houdini and using it in Unity. It's not quite going to be like an explicit tutorial, more just like, what does it do and like why you should use it. So I'm going to be demoing two fairly simple tools. Ooh, I can hear myself. Okay. Demoing two. Two tools. There's like a fence tool and a bridge building tool. I have them like stick in an environment in Unity and show you how it's nice to work with those. So what's a Houdini? It's a cool piece of software that's made by SideFX. It commonly was used as, it still is used in the VFX industry for film, because it does a pretty good job at like particle simulations and fluid simulations and more technical things like that. But it's more commonly being picked up in the games industry because you can automate a lot of the different art tasks that you want to do. So what does it do specifically? Well, it does pretty much everything you'd expect, modeling, rendering, texturing, all those things. Similar to Maya, it's kind of like a big package that does everything. It doesn't file my tax return yet. Maybe next year. I'm hoping. SideFX, please. So maybe you're thinking, well, so what? I've got all these that do that. Why do I care about using Houdini? Because Houdini does all those things procedurally. And doing it procedurally, in a nutshell, instead of you doing something, you're kind of building instructions for the computer to do the thing that you want it to do. So it does the work for you, but not really, because setting up those instructions still work. So it's not quite that easy. It's also non-destructive since it's procedural. So that means you're not going to, you're going to be able to go back in time, for lack of a better term, a lot better than just hitting Control-Z and hoping it works. Related story, this was an asset I was working on at work in Maya. Some sort of material error happened. My thing turned green. It's not supposed to be green. So like any seasoned Maya artist, I hit Control-Z and I got that. That's also not what it's supposed to look like. So yeah, I agree. The green was a little better. So I thought, well, I undid, so I'm going to redo. And Maya was like, no, you can't redo. So, everyone betrayed me. I'm fed up with this world. Houdini won't do that to you. Houdini's nice. And it's a lot easier to just show you what I mean rather than try to explain it. So it's demo time. Okay, we will start in Maya. So we'll say for our game that we want to make a, oh, where'd it go? We lost video. Hang on, I can fix this. Duplicate. We're back. Okay. All right. So say we want to make a fence asset for our game. Typically you'd make like a post with maybe a rope and then another post, so you can like take the one with the rope and then kind of like Lego block build out a fence, and then wow, you have a fence in Unity, and that's great. So to do that in Maya, normally you throw down a cylinder. I don't want to look at these UVs yet. That's okay. Throw down a cylinder. Maybe we're going to make it a little bigger, and I'm gonna bevel these edges because that looks nice. Control B to do that. You can adjust how much it's being beveled by. So we're kind of just doing everything by hand, more or less. I'll straighten these UVs out. And that's good. We got a fence. We got a fence piece now. So the reason this can be not ideal later on in development is, say we want to make a change to this. You throw it in your game and you're like, oh no, my fence is too short. Well, I'll stretch it. I can make it bigger, but now my bevels are all different and I have to fix my UVs. And what if we say, well, we want this to be more dense, have more edge loops around it. You can go back in the history in Maya and adjust it, and now it's not beveling correctly, and what if we want more subdivisions in the height? And oh ye gods, my post is ruined. But we can do it in Houdini and it won't have these issues. So if I open up Houdini here, see it's a little bit different. You still got your viewport, but that's not where you're going to be doing most of your work. Most of your work, you're going to be doing it in this big box down here with all these little nodes. So we'll make the same thing in Houdini, and you'll see why it's a little better for fiddling with things and like changing stuff. Let's call this fence post. So we just lay down a geometry node. It's kind of a container that holds meshes that you're working with and stuff. Double click to go into there. So instead of just, I could hit the tube button up here, but it's way easier to just hit tab, and then you get all these list of all these nodes. So to build our fence post, I'm gonna drop down tube, put it there. Now you can see our little tube in the viewport, and that's what this little blue indicator means, is that we're previewing that node. So we want this to be a polygon, we want end caps. These are all the parameters of whatever node you have selected are going to be up here, and you can adjust them however you want. So I want this fence post to be taller, we can do that. So now we're going to go ahead and bevel the edges. So we just drop down a bevel node, and we have to wire them together, and then we'll view the bevel. So I have to change the distance of the bevel, increase that a little bit, and we turn the wire thing on. So you can see it's beveled. Every single edge is not really what we want, but luckily almost every node in Houdini is going to have a group input. So go down to the group node, hook that up to our tube. We're going to say we want edges, and include by the angle of the edge, and if we crank that up to like, that's fine. It's just picking these top and bottom edges, which is exactly what we want. And then we can name the group, I'll name it bevel, that's what we want to do to it. And to get this into our network, you just stick it into the network like that, and then open up our bevel node, and say we want to bevel, and now it's only beveling the edges of the groups. Hooray, that's great. So now you're probably thinking, well, that's just the same thing as Maya, but with like 30 extra steps. That doesn't sound good at all. It's a little different because what we've done is we haven't just built a fence post, we've just built a tool that bevels every edge that is within this threshold. So you can go back, you can just click on this node up here, and we can adjust the amount of columns that it has, we can adjust the amount of rows that it has, the height, the radius, all that stuff, and it just runs that through the network, and you don't have any funky like, I undid this and now I have to redo all this work. You don't have to redo the bevel. It just does it for you with whatever you're inputting here. You can even put down a box, and it'll just bevel the box for us because it's picking up all those edges. So that may seem, still a little inconsequential, like, oh, we've made a nice post, that's fine. So just skip down here, sorry. We can take this further and further and make more and more complex tools. So I'll just jump right into our fence tool that I built here. Pop into this big long network. And so we've got a fence here, and I can just kind of step through the network so you can see what it's doing. We've got our tube at the top here. We're starting with, we're UVing it. So you can see it makes nice UVs for us. So again, that's really great because if we change the tube, we can add more columns to it. You don't have to re-UV stuff manually. It just does that for you, which is really great. So then we run it through a bevel. We're setting up some points up here that we're going to connect the ropes to later on. And that's another great thing about Houdini is if you're working down your network and you realize, oh shoot, I need it would have been great if I had set something up earlier, you can just go up the network and just set that up and rewire it in, and you're not gonna lose anything. You're not gonna you don't have to undo 50 times and then redo what you undid because you need to fix something earlier. You can just like stick something in the middle of this and it'll be great. So coloring post there, super exciting. And over here we've got our curve. I've drawn a very lovely fence. We have a terrain input here, and I'm just recasting those points to the terrain. See the little white line there. It's also been resampled a little bit, so it's a little smoother. And so you can see all the points there. And you can kind of see how if we just copy the posts to all these points, we're already pretty close to building a fence. We've just got a post, we just need to string our rope through it. I'm not going to go super into detail because it's just a lot of nodes. But we're drawing these two lines between all those posts. We've got a system here that it's another benefit to Houdini is it's really easy to add little randomized details. So what this chunk of nodes is doing is it's going through every section you can see numbered here of our rope. It's figuring out, is this long enough that it's figuring out, is this long enough that like this is short, so we know it's inside of our post, so we don't need to do anything to that. Then this section here is longer, so it's going to do a soft transform on the middle point, which kind of gives us a little droop. And you can see these are all green. Another awesome thing about Houdini, there's going to be a lot of those, is that you can just put script into these things to do interesting stuff. So this is a big, giant, random function that's going to give me a random amount of like droop on the ropes between whatever min and max I set. So if we go down to this sweep, then we're just sweeping some mesh over this line, and now it's kind of looking like a rope. We colored it brown there, and we keep going down the network, and now we've got our fence posts and we've got rope going between them. So the nice thing about everything being procedural is if I don't want my fence here, you can imagine if this is Maya and I wanted to move this fence post over, I could like drag it over here and I have to go and manually like fix all these other posts until it makes a nice smooth curve. In Houdini, I can just go back up to the top. I can edit this curve that I drew, and it'll just like, it'll chug because it's a 2014 MacBook, but it'll just redraw. It looks a little goofy because I have to turn it more. So yeah, you can just move the input curve that it's doing all this stuff to, and it just updates and it just has your fence for you instead of having to go through all the effort of like, oh man, to move 30 different posts and like fix all the UVs on the ropes that I have to rescale. And that's stressing me out just talking about it. So this is all well and good, but maybe you're wondering, how does this relate to Unity at all? Houdini has a plugin for Unity called Houdini Engine. I need to boot up Unity real quick. I can show you what's going on. So let's talk a little bit about Houdini Engine. Houdini Engine is a plugin for Unity that it comes with a license of Houdini. If you buy the Houdini Indie license, it comes with 3 engine licenses or something like that. It plugs into Unity, and you can take a graph like this, and you can package it up into a little box like this. And then you can go to edit the properties of that, and you can set yourself up all these little parameters here, and these are just the boxes here that like it's just the parameters of the nodes that are in the network. You can set up controls for them, so you can at this view you can tweak things. So say like I want more ropes, so I can just change that to 3. Now there's a 3rd rope. Now there's a 4th rope. Stuff like that. So when you set up controls like that and you export this as a tool, you can throw it into Unity, and you'll have all of these controls in Unity, which is really sweet. And Unity's open. Okay. So we got our, well, that's the grid. I'll do that later. Let's go over to our fence tool. So to load this in, you would just go up at the top if this has been installed. It's really chugging. Yeah, okay. Down here. This environment's like a visual representation of like the inside of this laptop. very warm. So you would just go to Houdini Engine up here, load HDA file, and then pick our fence tool that we made. You'll notice, unlike a normal mesh, it's already got its textures and stuff all set up. Because the other thing I forgot to mention about Houdini Engine is you can set up, find a node, attributes that Houdini Engine will hook up to Unity features. So this one, you just assign a Unity material attribute to a primitive, which is like a face, and then you can just tell it, I want this material. So when you run that tool in Unity, it's going to look for this material, and if it finds it, which it did, it's going to stick it on your model. So that's why these are all already, got wood and rope and stuff like that on them. It just reduces the amount of work that you have to do, because if you imported assets into Unity, it can be annoying to like, drag this model in, and then I gotta drag like 6 materials onto it, and nobody likes doing that. And then, as I mentioned, all these parameters that we had set up in Houdini are viewable here, and we can edit our curve directly in Unity as well, which is super nice. So I can just say, I want this fence over here instead. And it'll take a second to recook, but please. There we go. And it's updated, and now our fence is over there. Which is wonderful, because this will make level designing a lot easier. You don't have to like go and place every post and make sure they're all lined up properly and not intersecting weird. You can just like draw a line, and then Houdini will go, okay, I'll put your fence here, provided you set your tool to do that. You can do a lot more than just that, but I will show you a different tool that I've set up here. Is this like rope bridge tool? And it's a similar idea. We're taking a curve and then just doing a whole bunch of stuff to it and making a bridge. I can show you the graph here. It's a little bigger. And so we've got our bridge here. Starting out with this curve, just a start and end point that the user can like move around, snap it to the terrain, resample it to add a bunch of points, and then we loop the points a whole bunch because the rope bridge will loop. Over here, we're just taking blocks, a plank. We can set up points like we did with the fence to connect the rope to, placing those planks like we did with the fence, and then this is just a lot of nodes that, again, I'm not going to go like super specifically, but we're just connecting and moving this line around. So you can see down here, we kind of get, we kind of split it in two and then move one up higher, and then we're connecting those pairs of lines. Over here, we've got like the top lines, and once we set all those lines up, we can shoot them all down here, do sweeps, which we're going to turn them into little rope things. We're going to merge those all together down here, and now I've got a big jumble of rope. I'm going through this pretty quickly, sorry. So our end results look something like this. And it is similar to the fence tool. It's all editable in directly in Houdini with Houdini Engine. So if I want to, for example, move this fence, which would be a huge headache in Maya, because say I want this fence, instead of going here, I want it to go this way. Well, it's not going to be the same amount of planks. The ropes are going to be different lengths. I'm going to have to go remodel that somehow in Maya and like review the ropes probably, and that's going to be a huge pain in the butt. But with Houdini Engine, I can just like stick that over there, and it'll click for a minute. This is an old laptop. you can do it. You can click record again. Wonderful. It is a little off the edge of that cliff, so it looks a little goofy. I'll just click here. Yeah. So now we've moved our bridge over there, and that took like 4 seconds, as opposed to remodeling an entire whole asset. Oops. So let's see. Yeah, those are pretty much the modeling benefits. I mean, obviously these are fairly simple assets. You can go a lot crazier than this. You can just keep adding stuff onto your network and make fancier and fancier things. A common thing that I see along is like a building generator, or you can even just use it to place objects, because Houdini Engine will let you instance meshes. So you could like input a terrain from Unity into a Houdini Engine tool, and then have it find points where you can put trees, and then it'll just put all your trees on the terrain for you, and just save you a heck of a lot of clicking and time and headaches. So generally it's a little more involved than just making the thing once in Maya, but the reusability and like adjustability of everything is super worth it, because in games you change things all the time. Like maybe next week you want another chunk of terrain here, so you have to redo all this fence. It's so much easier to just redraw it and remodel everything. So on the other slideshow here, oh no, spoilers. Okay. Oh, it did the second screen thing. Okay. So hopefully I've made some sense in just rambling about Houdini for a couple minutes. If you want to know where you can get it, you can get it's on the SideFX website. There's a big download button. Houdini Apprentice is free. It's non-commercial, so you're not supposed to sell anything you make in it. Unfortunately, it does not have Houdini Engine support, so you wouldn't be able to do the directly in Unity editing part of what I've shown with the free version, and it has some limited export options. You can't export FBXs, and like if you render something, the resolution is limited. But they do have Houdini Indie, which is their cheapest like commercial paid tier. It's like $350 a year, which is it's not as expensive as Maya, which is like $2,000 a year. So that's a plus. It's limited commercial, so you can like sell stuff that you make with it, which is nice. This is what we use at work at Zenfri. We use a Houdini Indie license, and it does have Houdini Engine support, which is great, because obviously you can do all that stuff directly in Unity, and the export options are less than. I think there's a couple restrictions, like you can only render at like 4K or something, but it's not really too much to worry about. So if you want to learn how to use Houdini a little more in depth, there's a lot of really sweet tutorials out there. I've listed like my top few. CGWiki is just like a brain, I forget his name, but it's like a brain dump of like all these little tricks and tips, and he talks a lot about writing scripts in Houdini to do stuff as well. There's a site called Intagma, which does a lot of interesting Houdini tutorials. There's a lot of tutorials just for everything in general on level 80. And then SideFX themselves have a tutorials section, and I'll leave this up after if you guys want to like